Hey, Victoria, welcome. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And can you tell
So,
me how to pronounce your name so I get it right? Is it Adnan?
yeah, that's great. That's great
Okay.
pronunciation. Yeah, so welcome to the Ozark Mountain Authors, Ozark Mountain Publishing Author Series. And so we're doing these interviews with the different authors to talk about their books and how they came about to write them, because everyone has a beginning and a story of what caused what. And so this would be a great opportunity to do that. So if you could just before we go, it was you've written Being in a Body, Sleeping Phoenix, and Sleep Magic, correct?
Correct.
Okay, good deal. So I figured let's start out a little bit with your background, and then we'll get into your books. Then,
Okay. My background as it pertains to writing these books began. I had a disease. It's called diffuse progressive systemic sclerosis. It's also known as scleroderma, and it is fatal and it is incurable. To this day, there's still no cure for it. Um, I don't have it anymore. I some people might say I just lucked out. I don't, I got better. Other people don't. No, nobody does actually, but me. And it started me that journey of my own illness. Um, Started me because there was no cure for it. I began to seek alternative healers and look for help in that way. And I learned a lot. I learned about energy, I learned about vibration, I learned about all sorts of things. And eventually, one day after I was released from to go to the hospital once a month for these treatments that didn't cure anybody but me. And one day I came home from one of the last treatment. They said they were shutting down the study because, in fact, no one had been cured. And they fully expected me to die because I was off the treatment. And I came home that day and I had my one of my sisters came to sort of welcome me back. And also she thought I was going to die. So she had been was at my house to sort of soothe me and I didn't need any soothing. I I knew I was well. I just knew I was well. So we had a few words. I went inside and the few words among them were words about both my father and my grandfather. And she had implied when she spoke that there had been incest in the family. And that's the last thing I remember about my conversation with her because the next thing I remember is that I was standing in my kitchen watching a kind of a slideshow of my life from the time I was very, very young up until that point. And in fact, I saw what had happened, which apparently my body had been carrying around because the body, and this is what I write about, the body doesn't forget anything. The body remembers everything. You may not mentally remember things, but the body never forgets. And so I watched this slideshow and I went into a sort of a state of shock, I guess. I contacted all my siblings. I said, this is what happened. And they're like, oh, well, I wasn't going to talk about it, and it turned out to have been a very familial issue. And at that point, I began seeing a different kind of therapist because I needed some help processing to some degree. And one thing led to another. And I ended up one day, was in my room. I was doing my yoga, which I have done every morning for heaven knows how many years, 30, 40 years. And a, the room filled with a gigantic light. And the light the light talked and it sort of blew me off my feet and I was kind of lying back against the bed and it said, now you have to take what you have learned and help others. And then it went away and I just kind of sat there and watched as a lot of sort of slimy things seemed to leave my body and slide across the floor and go out the window. And I was in a kind of a state of shock, and I said, "Who is this?" And the voice said, "I am an embodiment of the light," and disappeared. Well, I had just been, it looked to me like I had just been kind of depossessed or something, because all these just slimy, horrible looking things leaving my body, literally coming out of my body and going across the floor and out the window. And that began me on this journey of, I enrolled in a theological school for a 4-year program, because I figured I can't just go out there and say, "Oop, over here, I'm a," so I and studied and learned things and experienced things and did a lot of healing with people myself because of the sort of mental trauma. Here, these are my hands. You can. This is this is my range of motion. Not much, um, but that's the result of the disease. My whole body had been crippled like that. I could barely move when I had the disease, but now there's just this left, which I think is sort of so I can show people, no, honest, I really had the disease here. Look at this, and that's sort of how my journey began. And I got a Doctor of Divinity degree. I became an ordained minister. I went through all the levels of Reiki and took Reiki mastership, because I felt I couldn't just walk up to people and go, "Hey, I'm a healer. Come on over here." And so between my own personal journey through this background that was revealed to me in that, as that movie reel sort of unfolded as I stood there startled, um, between that and working as a healer, I began to really kind of embody the healing process. Um, it was happening to me. I was helping other people do it. And then one night, some years into my practice, that I got another voice. This one was in a dream. And it said, "This, I'm going to tell you how to do this. You need to get up as soon as I finish telling you this and write this down. Then you need to tell all your clients how to do it, because not all your clients have a lot of money. They can't afford to see you all the time. They need something that can help themselves." And so I lit, and when it was over, I got up and I wrote down everything the voice told me, which is the sleep magic technique. I call it sleep magic because it happens when you're asleep. And it certainly seemed like magic to me. And I knew as I did it that, I mean, I was earning an income from being a healer. And I thought, well, here goes nothing, because I'm going to teach people how to heal themselves. And so, I don't know what will happen to me as a hands-on healer person. And I just had to trust. I learned as a child that I couldn't really trust the outside world very much. Um, I mean, the worst of my abuse came at the hands of my own grandparents, who marketed my sister and I. We were about 4, 5, 6 at the time, and they marketed us. They trafficked us, and that was one of the things that my body had been holding on to, that it wasn't telling me about, because it would have blown my mind. Almost literally, I had to apparently be prepared for this journey, and so that's what the scleroderma was probably all about, um, and the necessity of healing from that. And nothing happens for no reason. And so I think that a lot of that was to get me to this point where I could, in fact, channel this technique essentially in sleep, and then start teaching it to people. And after I started teaching it to people and seeing the results they were having, and yes, I lost business, but I became a different kind of a counselor then. I was like a mentor to people. Just give me a call. What are you having trouble with? And that's what I do now. Um, and I write. I write a lot. So um, that's how I got to be doing what I'm doing currently. Is via that strange, complex trip through abuse and illness and just growing as a person. The past 4 years, 5 years have been particularly challenging for me as there was a man who was in public office who was just like my grandfather's friends and my grandfather, very wealthy man who my grandfather was. Money was all he cared about. And he was willing to sacrifice his two of his children who happened to look a little more brown than his other children because my father was Cuban. And my sister and I looked more like my father than we did like my Germanic mother. And we were expendable. That's why we got marketed. He didn't view us as people. So that's why that happened. But again, everything I think happens for a reason. And I think that the past 5 years for me have allowed so much of my past to come vividly present again, like vividly, much like that first thing happened with the sort of film. So I'm getting a message that tells me we're not connected. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You just it was just going a bit slow, but
Okay.
it's still you're there.
Okay.
Um, so basically, then is and forgive me my ignorance. So the sleep magic, then is it mainly about how to just take in what your dreams tell you, or forgive me, what is it
No,
specifically about?
I will happily explain it. It might your dreams might become involved, but they don't necessarily. They don't have to. Um, what sleep magic does, because when you're asleep, of course, it's your subconscious and your unconscious that are more available than your conscious. So the goal is, let's say I have an issue. I have an I'm choking up every time I go to public speak or something like that. That doesn't happen to me, but it's a thing. So I would say to my body, I would have a discussion with my body prior to falling asleep and say, listen, I know that you know that I've been having trouble speaking up in public. And I'm guessing that there's a reason for that. And I'm guessing that you might be holding on to information that's creating this situation for me where I can't speak in public. And I wouldn't say can't, by the way, where I fail to be able to speak in public is what I would say, because the body does not understand negatives. The body only knows what is. It doesn't know what isn't. So you have to phrase everything in a very positive way, even if it's a negative seeming thing. You can't know and not and don't are words that are to be avoided when speaking with the body. So you present your issue, as it were, to your body, and you give your body permission then to let of whatever it's holding on to the degree that it's comfortable doing so. So some issues might take longer to completely release than others. Mine took years. Mine literally took years to release, but they did. Thanks to the stimulus from this unpleasant man that was in the public eye for 4 years or so, 5 years. Because that stimulus got to my body, it got to me. I was experiencing anxiety just from the sound of his voice. And that actually helped because then my body was like letting me know, holding on to stuff. I'm like, okay, because this shouldn't be triggering me if I'm free of it. But it was. And so the past few years have been fascinating for me. I've learned a lot, and it is within. Um, I guess I began my books even before that, so I've learned a lot since I've written the books, and I'm hoping to write more at this point.
So then basically it's the concept of before you go to sleep to kind of have this conversation with your body and kind of ask it what it is that you would like to for it to kind of get over.
Yes, essentially you have to give it permission because the body's job is to keep you safe, is to keep you alive. That's all the body cares about is this person needs to be alive. What do I need to be wary of in order to keep this person alive? Well, I'm no longer 5 years old. My body does not need to be wary of me being sexually trafficked. So but that said, that's a big deal. Eating too many potatoes at one sitting is not a big deal by comparison. Your body might let go of that a lot more easily. So it depends on the depth and the seriousness of the issue at hand. But once once you start talking to your body, once you develop a relationship with your body, the more you keep that up, the more your body trusts you. It's just bound to happen. We're not even taught as children to have a relationship with our bodies. We are taught that we are our bodies, but we're not. We're a soul or spirit being, whatever you might want to call it, that is chosen to inhabit a given body and the life that will come along with that body to learn things. And among the things that nobody teaches you need to learn is that you are not your body. And you need to have a healthy relationship with your body.
So
And
is that so you're then saying that there is a body consciousness
oh,
that it
absolutely.
has that has its own, I guess, is it safe to say a limited awareness that interacts with you or only knows how to interact with you?
I, its awareness is in interaction is with me, yes, but it can concern the outside world. It's concerned. The body's concern is what's happening outside of it.
Right.
Its concern is itself, is keeping itself alive. So,
And so, what I wanted to ask is, if you could maybe, it's very interesting to know, how did you learn about that body consciousness awareness?
well, that's what the voice that came to me in my dream told me about. It told me that it told me that I have to assume because I can't know it was a dream, but I have to assume that it was my body talking to me, explaining to me that it had a separate consciousness and that needed to be addressed. Because all the healing I was doing with people was your typical hands-off energy hands-off, hands-on energetic healing. And you have your hands on the body, but there was no concept that the body had a life of its own that was separate from the life of the spirit/soul being that inhabits the body. So that's what the voice had to get across to me.
And so then, what? So basically, is that the main idea? Is to simply just talk to your body, or is there more steps, more things to consider?
Well, it's it's deeper than just talking to your body because as I explained before, you have to be when you're actually asking the body for help, you have to be very um, specific in how you're doing that, which is why I wrote the books, because you can't just say, body, you can't do this anymore. You can't say can't because the body doesn't understand can't. So there's a sort of an art to the language, which is why I wrote the books. and I give so many examples of how in the books, how to phrase things that might be difficult to phrase, when you're trying to work around a touchy subject, for instance.
Well, can you maybe give me an example, if possible? Like, let's say, using your example about be having that fear, that anxiety speaking in public. How would a communication like that occur?
Okay. Well, first I would sort of connect with my body and address and say, "Hi, it's me again talking to you tonight, and I know we had a good day and dinner was great, and maybe I ate a little too much, so I apologize for that. But, I was wondering if you could help me with this issue I'm having because it seems that every time I get up to speak in public, I kind of shut down. And I don't have any trouble talking to you, and I don't have any trouble talking to my family. Now, I've just used don't, but here I'm not talking about the assignment itself. I'm talking about me. So I probably just to keep people on track to say, I can easily talk to my family and I can easily talk to my friends. Where I'm having trouble talking is when I stand up in front of an audience. And there I shut down. So I was wondering if there's something that you might be holding on to that you could perhaps let go of in order to allow me to speak in public, because I would very much enjoy that. And when we're in public, when we're up on a stage like that, we're we're the show. We people are paying attention to us. Only good things can happen up there. So if there's something that you're holding on to that I've perhaps forgotten about from a long time ago, you have my absolute 100% permission to just let that go. Because guess what? I'm all grown up now. You're all grown up now. The chances of anything like that happening are very slim indeed. Plus, we're clever enough now to be able to shut that person down, which may perhaps as a child we might not have been. So, any help you can give me would be much appreciated. Thank you so much. I love you. So you're having a conversation with your body. And
So
maybe
then,
you get a dream maybe you get a dream in response that's, like, vividly. Maybe you're talking on stage and people are throwing things at you in the dream, which is, of course, the sort of thing that the body might be afraid of. If that happens, you know one thing. You would know that your body got the message, that your body is indeed afraid, and that perhaps your body's not ready to let go yet because it didn't have you like, it didn't let you sleep through the night pleasantly. It kind of woke you up and said, "No, no, I'm terrified." If that happens, you might the next night go in, have a little gentle opening with your body, say, "It seems like you had some trouble with that request I gave you last night, so if you could perhaps you could, um, let me remember what it is that you're dwelling on." Because, yeah, I know, everybody knows, I think every once in a while, you'll be walking along somewhere, and all of a sudden, a memory will pop into your head almost out of nowhere, and it's not out of nowhere, of course, it's out of your subconscious. So you're essentially give your body permission to perhaps release to you some subconscious memories that might be holding on to, or, wherever they might be. Just give it permission. Say, I know you did what you could, and thank you for that. But perhaps we could try again, with you letting me know what's standing in our way. And you could perhaps maybe even let go of what's standing in our way and then see what happens that night.
so that I understand now. So the dream part is vital in you then getting a response, or at least getting
It's
an
not
inkling of a response.
it's not vital. It
Hmm,
what it can do is, as you said, give you an inkling that the
right.
body knows. So it's sort of like a validation. If the dream is related, you've got validation that it worked. You don't need validation that it worked. The validation that it worked is that it works, and you see that it worked. And that may take time. It may take, maybe be days before whatever you talked about even comes up in your life.
Hmm.
But as long as you don't have a nightmare or something terrifying, it's working. If you have a nightmare or something terrifying, then you know the body's not ready. It's simply not ready. And the next night, you probably want to apologize for putting so much on your body's plate. And
Is
and
it? Can you just continue asking, until it finally understands that it's okay?
given time, yes, but it's one of those things like where you don't want to push someone that doesn't want to do something. So you let them process their experience. Like for instance, let's say you want to go ride on a horse, and your horse threw you off because it was not a good horse, not a horse that was trained to have somebody on its back. And what you might do then with that horse is, because you've heard the phrase "get back on the horse." It's the same kind of thing. You let a couple days go by, then you comb the horse a little bit, and then you get to know the horse, and then you might pet it a little bit, and then the next day you might try putting a saddle on the horse and see how the horse responds. And so you treat the body with much the same kind of respect for its um, insistence on doing its job, because that's what it thinks it's doing when it refuses to let go of something, or it's afraid of letting go of something. And you're gentle with it like you would be with any four-legged animal, or a child even.
So then, what would be kind of a good segue then to include then what caused then, was it the result of this that you then had to write more about, or are these different books different from the original sleep magic idea?
Um, they they progress a little. The original sleep magic book is a lot of assignments primarily, and the Sleeping Phoenix just expands on it a little more, as I have expanded on it a little more when you ask me to, address this, address that. So, and each of the books, the first book has in it assignments, I call them, that I created to help people get started. And they're assignments that deal with what I call life before life. So they deal with when your mother was carrying you in utero, because when your mother's carrying you in utero, you're picking up everything your mother's taking in. And that goes for what she's thinking and what she might be scared of and all those things. So that first book has all these assignments that are related to clearing your body of that very first primary input. And the second book, The Sleeping Phoenix, addresses the first 7 years of life. So it addresses time when you might not be fully aware, like a lot of people don't remember what went on around them when they were 5 or 6 years old. So this book addresses the possibilities of things that might have happened that are not necessarily you're conscious of, but they might be there. So you're kind of clearing the way so that you can get to the point where you're in your present day dealing with your present self. And then
Okay,
that's
great,
why
thank
being,
you.
that's why being in a body follows those, because being in a body then introduces you to this concept that we've been speaking about.
Oh, got it. So, is there? I think what would be nice, maybe, actually, like the number one thing that's been always ailing, especially the United States. Um, what about? Is there something you could speak to, or a process to, let's say, obesity or overeating? Because a lot of
Oh,
people always on their minds, like every year everyone is going on a diet, and every time we talk to somebody there's a diet going on somewhere somehow. And so I figured this is kind of like the number one thing that all of us always talk about. If there's something that you could maybe speak to, that to give more examples that someone could understand and relate to.
absolutely. And you know what? I'm kind of embarrassed that I haven't addressed that in my books, because it's a thing for me that was not a problem. It wasn't a thing in my family that showed up. And so kind of outside of my realm. And I'm glad you brought that up. That's a great thing. I'll have to think about that. But the way that you would begin to address that would depend a little bit on the person's um, comfort level with their own weight, because I have to imagine, and I can only imagine because that's never been an issue of mine. So I can only imagine that if a person eats more than they should, or in the case of anorexics, less than they should, um, there's something there is something going on at a very core level, and you'll want to be cautious in addressing the body that you're not insulting the body because you're eating because you're hungry. You're eating because you think you're hungry or you actually are hungry. Either way, it doesn't matter. It's a need and it's physical and it's coming from inside you. So I think the place to begin with that would simply be speaking in terms of the fact that you perhaps don't know why you're eating too much or too little, and that you know that the body knows. So I think the first thing I would do, I believe, is have that discussion with my body. Not even ask for any help on the first night I approached it. I'd just have a discussion with my body that day about the fact that the body must know something or must be holding on to something that's allowing me to eat in a way that is perhaps less than desirable for the health of itself. So, and I would just introduce the body to the concept that you're going to address this because nothing could be more personal. It's you. And and it may be dependent. There may be outside influences is involved. Many people who are heavy set, for instance, come from families where it's just the thing. Eating is the thing, and the whole family is heavy. And then you get to address the family one at a time. I know that dad sits up there and consumes an entire half a lamb at dinner, and I know that you may be influenced by that, and you need to know that I'm concerned about our health in those matters, and I'd like you to help me attain a state of mind that would be healthy for you, so that we know what's appropriate for us to eat, for what's good for us to eat. Right, because of course you're trying to avoid no's and nots and can'ts, so you don't want to keep talk about not doing this and not doing that. You have to address everything in a positive term. So you might say, what might be a good idea one night would be to say to the body that you'd like to adopt a more healthy diet and that perhaps it could let go of anything that it might be holding on to that would stand in the way of you developing a healthy diet, of you looking at new foods to eat that might be really helpful for the body. I would think a body would love that just because it's helping the body be healthy.
That's yeah, that would be interesting because you don't know because based on just the general spirituality and most people that I always heard talk about these different things, some say it's used as a protection. You feel some kind of fear, so you are creating a buffer around yourself. Others would say that it's baggage you're holding on to. But then others would also say, well, it's just there to help you ground you better. And there's like all these different varieties and different things that I guess until you start talking to yourself and the body to figure it out. Reminds me of that one. What was that one funny quote? It says, um, "Oh, something like um, if I want a professional opinion, or if I want a what is it called? Something along the lines like if I want a professional opinion, I talk to myself or something like that." Yeah, yeah. I'm,
Well,
I'm butchering the quote. It's a lot more clever and funnier said the other way. I just can't remember it exactly right now.
in a sense, sleep magic is talking to yourself, except what you're doing is listening to your body.
Right.
That's the goal is that you're not the important one here. You need to listen, as is often the case with so many things.
But it's never been the case that the body then will go against of what you want. It's just, I mean, it'll overreact
Not on
from the
purpose.
sounds of it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's never on purpose. The body,
right.
again, the body's main drive is to be alive. And one would suppose that it's also to be healthy and alive, because
Right.
the body, what feels pain? It's your body that feels pain. Nobody likes
Right.
that. Nobody likes that.
Well, Victoria, so are there any kind of final thoughts that that are kind of all encompassing, and things that you just want to leave us with here at the end?
I think the main thing I've learned over the years is this understanding, this bowing to the fact that I am a spiritual being in a physical body, and that that is what people are. And it's the most important thing to know. We're all here, we've taken on body to learn what that's like, about what physical life is like. And I think that's the most critical thing, is that people just, they don't think of themselves as a being within a being. They think of themselves as, this is it. This is the whole show here. But the whole show is multi-layered. It's multifaceted. And the body deserves so much respect, especially for someone like me. I mean, with all the illnesses that I've been through, it's ridiculous. Um, and a lot of people will just be irritated or angry that you've been through this. This is your body processing some stuff, and you have to have respect for that, because a lot of the stuff it's processing is yours, is the spirit soul stuff that it's
Right.
going through because you came here to experience life. So that to me is the thing that has impacted me most in doing this work and having things revealed to me. It's it's a life changer.
Well, great. Well, Victoria, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to have all your links in the description below this video. And do you just want to give your website or some other things that you might think people might find interesting to point them to in that direction now?
Um, I actually, the only website that I have is an art, one for my paintings. I have written the books, and I trust Ozark has my information on their website, because again, I don't have a website for this work. I'm not I haven't been looking for one.
Mm.
People find me. If they want me, they find me.
So I know I'm definitely, so what I'm seeing on the site now that I will also include in the description below, there's one, Healing Power of Art and Artists, and Victoria Pendragon Paint.
Okay, Victoria Pendragon Paints. That is the art. That is my art website. That's where my paintings are. Um, and
And
for
so,
victoriapendragonpaints.com, I believe it is.
and what about the first one I mentioned? Is that something also or no?
Which the Victoria? What was the first one?
It's I just have it under Healing Power of Art and Artists.
I think, I am not sure. I believe that I am have I there. I believe that's a many artists, and I think I probably have a little feature spot there or something.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. All right. Then I know which one. And YouTube and Twitter, Facebook as well.
I am on Twitter as I believe I'm tran transformative art, at transformative art. I have to, yeah,
I have
I'm
some
on
links
Twitter.
here. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook.
Transmore. Can't speak today. Transformative RT.
Yeah, that's the one I had trouble getting out
Okay,
myself. It's because
got it.
it's spelled funny, but it's transformative TVRT.
Right. Okay. All right. Good deal. Well, good thing that people don't have to sit there trying to write it all down. As I mentioned, all in the description below. All right. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate it for taking the time. I'm glad we were able to make this happen, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Oh, thank you so much, Adnan. I enjoyed talking with you.
All
You're
right, you
very
take care.
patient. Bye-bye.
Thank you.